Hey guys, I'm back here with another video. Today's video is something I've been wanting to talk about for a pretty long time, and if you know me personally, you probably know I post about it a lot. I have celiac disease. If you don't know what that is, celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, which means when I get gluten, my body attacks itself. My immune system attacks my organs. Not fun. I cannot ingest gluten, which is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. I was diagnosed when I was 19 months old in April of 2001, April 5th to be exact. I have officially had celiac for 19 years now. When I was diagnosed, my mom was 9 months pregnant with my brother. I was diagnosed actually 2 weeks before my brother was born, and it was, I don't remember a whole lot, but I was not the happiest child. I would fight my parents before dinner or meals because I knew eating made me not feel good. I would throw temper tantrums. I never crawled as a child. I would slide myself around because being that I was not gluten-free yet, I was ingesting gluten all the time. I had no energy. So basically, villi in your intestines, when you eat gluten, they get flat. So they aren't absorbing any nutrition from the food that you eat, which not a good situation. Once you start eating gluten-free, then your gut starts to heal and your small intestine starts being able to absorb nutrition again. So when I was little, my belly was super distended. I was basically starving to death. My parents don't know how much longer I could have gone if I hadn't gotten diagnosed when I did. So after my diagnosis, things started to look up. My brother was born, I started to feel better, and my mom labeled everything. So I was pretty little. I was not even 2 when I was diagnosed. But as I got older and my parents started having babysitters come over or whoever to watch me and my brother while they were out, my mom decided it would be a good idea to put stickers, little smiley face stickers, on all the foods I could eat. So I would know, and it made it easier for the babysitter or whoever was watching us to find my food and know what was safe for me to have. That, I think, was a great idea. That was all my mom. So once I got to school at 5 years old, I remember going, this is really my only memory of that age, was going in before kindergarten, like right after kindergarten registration, and going in to the nurse's office, and my mom introduced me to the school nurses so that I would know who they were in the event that I got sick. My mom and dad did not have any idea what I was walking into, but the nurses were great. I remember them showing me my records, I think, and saying, you know, I had a clean bill of health, I was perfectly healthy. I remember in 1st or 2nd grade, my teacher offering me donuts. I could not have donuts. I knew that. I also should mention, my mom, upon my diagnosis, got rid of, like, everything I couldn't have, and all like the finger foods and such that you give little kids, like Cheerios, she got rid of, so that by the time my brother was able to eat that stuff, I wouldn't remember it and he wouldn't be like giving it to me or having me ask for it. My earliest memory of getting made fun of because of my celiac was 6th grade. Twice, actually. I was made fun of in the cafeteria. I've also been told, like, oh, I didn't know celiac was a thing. Yes, here's the story. Celiac disease is obviously the autoimmune disease. There is such a thing as gluten sensitivity. See, there's the fad that everybody's like, oh, I'm gluten-free, it's so much healthier. It's not. Gluten-free food actually has more sugars and more I don't know, like preservatives to make up for taste and texture and everything that we don't have in our food because we don't have the wheat flour in it. Okay, so I'm going to be really honest. As a celiac, seeing the fad that people think gluten-free is healthier is really frustrating to me, because as a celiac, once gluten-free becomes a trend, and restaurants see, like, especially like waiters and waitresses see, oh, just a little bit of gluten is okay for them, or, oh, it's fine if I just, throw an onion ring on the side of their burger because, it's only just a little bit of gluten. That doesn't fly with us. Cross-contamination is a real thing. I've gotten sick from it. I remember when and where and who I was with. It's not fun, and it will hurt us celiacs. So then when people are like, oh, it's just a little bit is fine, or oh, I'll just take some Tums after I eat it, that's not how it works. That will harm us celiacs. And because those people are going out in public and broadcasting that information, then we go in and I say I'm gluten-free and I don't get taken seriously, even though it's medically necessary for me to have gluten-free food. I've had waiters and waitresses say, like, oh, well, it's not a big deal, we'll just, cook your burger on the same spot right next to where we toast the hamburger buns. I'm like, no, that it doesn't work like that. It's very frustrating to not be taken seriously. I've gotten to the point where I cannot tell somebody that I'm gluten-free. I have to say I have celiac. If they ask what that is, then fine, I will explain it. But if I say I'm gluten-free, I get judged, I get eye rolls, I don't get taken seriously, I get made fun of. It's not... I need people to know that it's a real thing, it's a real issue, it's not something to make fun of, it's not something to, joke about or, roll your eyes at. It is a serious medical condition, and just like I would want somebody to, take my father's peanut allergy, my dad has a peanut allergy, I would want them to take that seriously. I would not want them making fun of that. Just because I have celiac doesn't make me any different. I'm still perfectly healthy, normal human being. Actually, celiac used to be a huge insecurity of mine. It kind of still is, which is why I talk about it so much, because if I'm the one broadcasting it, then nobody else can make fun of me for it. I was always, throughout middle school and some of high school too, I was embarrassed to go in for lunch and see teachers, because I knew my food looked different and I knew it was different and others could see that. I got all sorts of comments all the time in middle school about, why my bread looked different than, so-and-so's, why my pasta was different, why, I had to have different pizza, or why I couldn't have the cake when I went to a birthday party. I would get all sorts of questions, and it makes you feel different, especially when, you go to a birthday party as a 12-year-old and you can't have the cupcakes that everybody else is having and you have to go get your own, or when everybody else is having cookie cake and you can't have it, so you have a brownie instead. Like, it's just, obviously you get to partake in the celebration, but then everybody looks at you wondering why you're different and why you don't have the same thing as them, and you get questions, and it's awkward. I don't know how else to describe it. By the way, celiac is genetic. I cannot give it to someone. I cannot pass it. Well, okay, I could pass it on to my future children, but it's all a roll of the dice. I am pretty sure I got it from both sides of the family. My mom has relatives on her side of the family that have celiac, and my dad has relatives on his side that also have celiac. But my mom, my dad, and my brother do not have celiac. I am the only one that's gluten-free in our family. My parents never went gluten-free. Like, when I went gluten-free, a lot of people will like, oh, your daughter's gluten-free, like, is the whole family? No, we are not. I do not have, so in college, I make sure to have my own separate pans and dishes and such, just to make sure cross-contamination doesn't happen. But when I'm here at home, we use just a lot of soap. Putting things in the dishwasher, hand washing them, just use a lot of soap. Make sure all the, if anything gets baked onto the dish, make sure that gets scraped off. Some common misconceptions about celiac. No, if I get gluten, Tums, Maalox, ointment, you name it, it's not going to help me. The only thing that will help me is time, and everybody's reaction when they get gluten is totally different. I have a theory that the longer you go with celiac disease and the longer you eat gluten-free and stick to that diet, the worse your reaction gets, unfortunately. This is not scientifically proven, but the longer I've gone being gluten-free and having celiac, the worse my reaction has gotten when I do get gluten. Right now, I'll spare you some details, but I get sick 4 hours after eating something I'm not supposed to, and I'm sick for about 4 hours after. On average, Americans go 11 years without being diagnosed. Symptoms can vary. I mean, I know people who were having headaches and brain fog and got diagnosed with celiac, and I also know people who are having, GI issues, stomach issues, and were diagnosed with celiac. So it really varies. A lot of people ask, if I could go back in time and change it, would I? My answer is no. And I think celiac is a part of me. It doesn't define me, but it is a huge part of me, and it makes me who I am. And I think if I didn't have it, there's a lot of people I would never have met, and my mom would never have met, if I didn't go through the things that I did. There's a lot of opportunities and things that I never would have gotten to do. The celiac walk, for instance, happens every year. It's been almost 20 years of that. I never would have gotten to do that. That's literally like Christmas for us celiacs. It's the best. You get to go around, so you do the walk, and then afterwards you get to go around, and there's different vendors there. They all have gluten-free food, snacks, meals, and just like samples. So you get to go around and like eat everything, and I don't have to worry. For once, don't have to worry about what I'm eating, and it's literally the best. It's Christmas. It's so nice to be able to walk around and say, oh, I want some of that. I think I'll go have it. Rather than, oh, I wish I could have that. It's not worth getting sick over. And, I get to just go eat whatever. And it's great. There's a lot of like different opportunities I would have missed. And I would have not been able to do some of the stuff that I've done. I'm glad that I'm dealing with it and it's not somebody else. 1 in 133 Americans have celiac, and that makes us 1% of the population, and I think that's pretty special. We deal with something that a lot of other people don't or don't understand, and I think being able to spread knowledge and spread awareness is pretty great. So over time, obviously I've had celiac for 19 years now, I've learned a lot of lessons. First of all, true friends will never make fun of you for what you can or can't eat. I found my best friends at college, and they accept me for who I am, and they don't laugh at me because I can't have, a certain drink at Starbucks, or I can't have the cookies that they're serving in the dining hall. They totally accept me. You know who you are. I'm very thankful for my best friends. They don't ever make me feel different. They don't make me feel like I'm not normal or like I stand out. They make me feel human, honestly. Second of all, it can be hard. My parents, we've always enjoyed going out to dinner with friends, family friends, that I don't see very often or whatever, and we go out with them, and it's so much fun. But what I've learned from having celiac is that it's not about the food. It's not you can't go into it thinking, you know, the food is why I'm coming, or the food is why we're gonna go. It's not about the food. It's about who you're with. It's about spending time with people. It's about having fun and, you know, enjoying yourself, not worrying. It's being there with the people that you care about and spending time with people. It's, you have to forget about the food altogether. And for my fellow celiacs, I highly suggest keeping this in mind the next time you go somewhere that seems to be centered around the food. I mean, I have said no to so many different events where it seemed to revolve around the food. There's been breakfasts and such at college that I've been invited to for different, you know, programs or events, and I've said no because going, I can't eat the food. Why would I bother? Why would I bother? It's because of the people. It's because my friends are going to be there, or because I'm going to have professors there, or because my parents want to come and, you know, celebrate with me. It's not about the food, and you have to keep that in mind. To anyone with food allergies, I feel you. And lastly, celiac does not define me. I have to learn to embrace it, and it's not easy. And, you know, there are several things in the future that I am nervous about because I know it's not going to be easy to navigate, but I can do it and I'll get through it. It'll work itself out with time. So to those of you who may have more questions or are just dealing with celiac on an everyday basis, or are dealing with food allergies, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm here. I'm pretty much an open book. And like, that's the other thing. If you haven't heard of celiac, if you haven't ever known somebody with it, or, you know, dealt with it in your life, please feel free to educate yourself. Feel free to ask questions. I know personally, I'm not afraid to answer questions. You know, people can pepper me with questions all day long. I really don't mind. I will answer anything and everything. And if there's something you don't know and you can't, you know, ask someone, Google it. And there are several websites out there you can find valuable information. And, you know, if you have a friend with celiac or who's newly diagnosed, feel free to reach out to them. I know from personal experience, diagnosis, like the couple days, couple months after, can be very overwhelming. And, you know, to not be able to have the pizza, the pasta, the cake, cookies, bread, you know, literally everything you know is taken away from you from stories and experience. It's not easy. So if you are struggling, or if you know someone who's struggling, please reach out. Those of you who do have celiac or are newly diagnosed, there are so many support groups, both through like email and Facebook, and, you know, in person once we get over this whole coronavirus thing. There are so many resources out there. Please don't be shy. People are here for you. It does get easier, obviously, but I still deal with, you know, rough patches. It gets awkward, especially like when you first, whether it's a date or a friend, when you first like hang out with someone and you decide, oh, let's go get coffee, or let's go get, you know, whatever, and they ask if you want food and you can't have that food. It is so incredibly awkward. And, you know, I always feel so guilty because people have to come to me and say, all right, what restaurant can we go to? Because, you know, I don't have a ton of options depending on where we are. Here at home, thankfully, I have so many options and so many restaurants that know and understand celiac disease, but that's not the case, especially if we go on vacation. I remember a couple years ago, we went to, oh gosh, Lake George, I think, and I had a really hard time that week because my parents and my brother could just wander into town and, oh, they wanted pizza, they can get pizza. Or, oh, they see, you know, a cafe, they can go in and get a sandwich or whatever. I can't. And it really hit me hard that week that I had to bring food everywhere I went and nobody else did. And how was that fair? And, you know, why was I dealing with this, and why couldn't I just be normal? It sucks. I'll just be honest, it does suck, but there are ways around it. And, you know, you have to be positive. Like, there are going to be tough times, and, you know, no matter what you're going through, it does get easier, but you're gonna run into rough patches. That's just life. So, you know, I was extremely frustrated that week, but it got better. And it definitely helped once my mom found restaurants that I could eat at safely. It got so much better because I knew I could go out and be like everybody else and, sit down and have a meal just like, everybody else was. And it made me feel somewhat normal again. Typically, I don't, on a day-to-day basis, I forget that I even have celiac. In groups, it can be tough. I remember a couple weeks before spring break, actually, I was at a friend's house and from college, and they were celebrating their roommate's birthday, and if you know who you are, love you guys. And they were cutting the cake, and I could not have the cake. And they all knew I couldn't have it, so I don't think they even offered it to me, which is so sweet of them to think of me. And obviously they offered me other things, which was great, but they didn't make me feel like I was any different. They didn't stare at me because I wasn't eating, or they didn't, single me out because I couldn't have the cake. Like, it was very chill, just, we're just hanging with friends. Like, yeah, they're eating, I'm not, so what? It has its challenging points, I'm not gonna lie, but it gets easier, and as I get older, I've learned to deal with more and more situations. It's not as hard as it was, although I anticipate many situations in the future that won't be easy. But, it gets better, and, there's tons of support out there, like I said, so if I ever feel down or disappointed or frustrated, which I do, I can always reach out, and there's always people who understand, which, thank God, my mom understands, obviously, and she's here for me, and, there have been times when I get so frustrated, and I just kind of break down in tears, because there's just no other way to cope with it, and she's always there for me, and I couldn't be more thankful. But when I feel like, she gets it, but she doesn't live it. So I do have friends with celiac that I reach out to, and, there are Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and I can vent there. I can talk to other people and share my stories, and it feels so good to be able to relate to someone on that level. If you're struggling, I highly suggest reaching out. It made me feel so much better, and hopefully it makes you feel better too. Thank you guys so much for watching. It means a lot. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. Send me a, message. I'd love to hear from you guys. So thanks for watching. Bye.